I met with David Benioff and Dan Weiss, the showrunners of the show, and we sat down in a room and just started talking about the show, and they did an amazing job in guiding me through the process or through the show, because like I said, I had not read the book, so I had no idea where this was going. And so yeah, we hit it off before I even had written a note, and we just talked about the possibilities, and they said to me, like, look, this is a very complex story. There's hundreds of characters, and how do we go about this musically? How thematically? How do we make this that this enhances everything rather than confuses things? Because, for example, having a theme for every single character right away would have been way too confusing, because then every time two people talk, you go, which theme are you using? Like that, it was just so complex. When we sat in that room, we just had ideas so quickly that we just hit it off. So I was super excited to get involved with that show. The one thing we laughed about throughout all the seasons was that they just that it being sort of, obviously it's a fantasy show, but it has a little bit of that medieval feel, and swords and dragons and everything. But the one thing they wanted to make sure to stay away from was flutes. They said, we don't want any medieval types of flutes. We also want to do something different than what Howard Shore had beautifully done for The Lord of the Rings, which there flutes were used, and they just said, we want to make sure we create our own distinctive score and sound. So the one thing they gave me on my way was, they said no flutes. So we always laughed about that when we talked about all the instruments that we could use, and through the seasons we would always say, like, oh, is there something we haven't used? Is there another instrument? And we always would laugh about it and say, like, okay, but no flutes. So that was like the one big restriction for me. There was no flutes. The primary instruments that came to my mind immediately was the cello, because I love the cello. I feel it's such an expressive instrument. I love how the range, it can get into a nice low dark range, and it can also play very high into a violin range, actually. So that's the instruments I pitched to them as our primary instrument. And the show being such a dark show, and I thought, how about if we make the cello our main instrument? And that's what you hear on a lot of the themes, on a lot of its place on the main title. It's everywhere.